Priestess discovered by a poor farmer, the amazing life-changing secret that shocked everyone. Jake was just another humble farmer in rural Nebraska, nothing special about him. At 35, life had delivered its fair share of heartaches, especially lately as he toiled under the sweltering sun. He wiped sweat from his brow, staring at the overgrown corn patch that seemed to mock him. "Come on, old friend," he muttered to the land, gripping the handle of his shovel. The weight of debts and fading dreams bore down on him like an anchor. Around him, fields lay brown and lifeless, struggling just like Jake was. Yet, through it all, he held tight to the notion that honest labor would bear fruit someday. His loyal dog, Buddy, stood nearby, tail wagging a beacon of hope against the tide of despair. Then came that sweltering afternoon, the kind when the air felt thick and distant. As Jake hacked at the weeds, his heart raced when he caught sight of her, a woman beneath the grand oak tree. Ilara. At first glance, she seemed out of place, ethereal, enchanting, with flowing hair and deep, knowing eyes. A silvery aura wrapped around her, one that made Jake's pulse quicken. Curious, he put down his shovel, captivated by her presence, but the townsfolk were not so welcoming. They whispered about her, casting shadows of doubt. Rumors spiraled. "She's got magic," they'd say, eyes wide with fear. Their small-town hearts could harbor only suspicion for something they didn't understand. Ilara's gifts, her uncanny ability to heal both land and spirit, had drawn scorn that left a bitter taste in Jake's mouth. Yet, no matter the murmurs, he saw something different in her, an ember of hope. As the weeks rolled on, Jake found himself visiting Ilara often, their conversations blooming like wildflowers in spring. She held a gentle strength, and with every shared story, he felt the weight on his shoulders ease just a tad. But as he grew closer to her, he grew apart from his own family. His older brother, Sam, rang with tradition and rooted values. "You can't trust her, Jake. She brings bad luck," he barked, his voice cutting through the air. Family loyalty twisted like a vine around Jake's heart, squeezing tighter with each warning. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as the friendship between Jake and Ilara began to blossom, catastrophe struck the drought. Fields turned to dust, and the sun seemed to laugh cruelly at their misfortune. Families went hungry, and fear pulsed through the town like an electric current. Jake could feel it too, the desperation gnawed at his insides. If he supported Ilara, he risked losing everything, his home, his family, and the community he had lived in all his life. Yet, if he turned his back on her, would he condemn himself to a life of continued struggle and sorrow? The town was at a crossroads, whispers rising to shrieks as panic settled like a blanket over the community. It was time for Jake to speak out, to stand tall against the tide of fear and prejudice. He felt the weight of the crowd's eyes as he addressed them, his heart thundering in his chest. "What if Ilara can save us?" he implored, voice unwavering. He could almost hear the silence throbbing around him, all of Nebraska listening intently to a solitary voice. In that charged moment, he stood on the brink of something monumental. Would the people embrace change and fight together, or would they allow fear to quench the flicker of hope that Ilara ignited in his heart? A heavy silence clung to the air as Jake gripped the podium, his own hands trembling slightly. He scanned the crowd, a sea of familiar faces twisted with uncertainty. Panic gripped Jake's heart, he couldn't help but wonder if he had made a grave mistake. The fear that pulsed through the townsfolk was almost palpable, wrapping around him like a shroud. Some turned their heads, unwilling to meet his gaze, while others whispered hurriedly to each other. "Jake, what were you doing?" A voice slashed through the murmur. It was Sam, looming at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed and face painted with disbelief. "We don't need her magic or whatever nonsense you think she has. We need hard work, perseverance, not some woman who talks to trees. But Jake stood firm. This was more than just a choice, it felt like a reckoning. He could feel Alara South's presence hovering somewhere close, her comforting energy wrapping around him like a warm blanket. She had shown him that there was more to life than mere survival, the promise of healing, of a bond between nature and humanity that had long been severed. "You're wrong, Sam," Jake replied, voice steady. "We can't just keep living this way. We have to try something different. Alara can help us. She has the power to bring the land back to life." Face flushed with anger, Sam stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "And what if you're wrong, Jake? What if we lose everything because of some wild dream you're chasing?" Jake took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every person watching him. He had told himself he would do this, yet the reality of the moment pressed down like a heavy stone. Would he stand alone, or would the townsfolk trust in the very thing that terrified them? "Let me show you," he declared, intensity swelling in his chest. "Meet me at the edge of town tomorrow at dawn. Alara will be there. If she fails, I'll promise to step back from this, but if she doesn't, we might just save ourselves." The crowd buzzed nervously, hesitation intertwining with curiosity. As Jake stepped down, he could feel their eyes bore into him, weighing expectations against the fears that resided in their hearts. Afterward, he stumbled onto the dirt path leading home, thoughts racing. This was a gamble, one that could either ruin him or transform everything he had ever known. He could almost hear Buddy's soft paws patting beside him, sensing his turmoil. "Will they trust us?" he murmured to his faithful companion. Buddy barked softly, as if responding in encouragement. The sun began to set, casting long shadows that danced across the earth, and Jake felt a flicker of hope. He reached the door, heart racing with an adrenaline-fueled uncertainty that kept him from sleep. The night was restless. As Jake lay in bed, he imagined the dawn, its golden light piercing through the unyielding grip of darkness. He needed to believe that the townsfolk could set aside their doubts, if only for a moment, to witness Alara's gift, but fear is a stubborn thing. Dawn came, the world painted in fresh hues of pink and orange. Jake looked out, heart racing, but a shiver of doubt crept in. What if they turned their backs on him? As Jake approached the meeting spot, he felt a sinking feeling it was happening. The small gathering slowly grew, but not everyone had come. Some still succumbed to fear, unwilling to take a step towards the unknown. Could he really blame them? And then, just as he caught sight of Alara, a storm cloud gathered on the horizon, darkening the sky like the omen of a great challenge yet to come. The moment of truth was at hand, and all Jake could think was, what if this was just the beginning of something far more complicated? The atmosphere was charged as Jake stood with Alara at the edge of town. The dark clouds loomed ominously above, swirling like a message from the heavens warning him of the storm to come. Yet, despite the brewing tempest, something felt electric in the air, a current of potential, of change. The flicker of anxious voices mingled with the wind, and Jake strained to hear what they were murmuring. What if she can't do anything? What if all this is a waste of time? Sam's words echoed in his mind, but he pushed them aside. This was for more than just him now. It was for everyone, for the hopes and dreams of the town that had been trampled beneath years of drought and despair. Alara stood before him, her presence grounding in the chaos around them. She exuded confidence, her eyes bright like the morning sun beginning to pierce through the cloudy veil. Jake took a deep breath. It was time to silence the doubts. "Everyone!" he called, his voice grasping for authority, fighting to cut through the tumult. "I know you have fears. I have them, too. But let us take this step together. Let Alara show us." The crowd was hesitant, each face reflecting a mix of skepticism and yearning. Just then, Buddy let out a bark, positioning himself beside Alara, as if to say he believed in her. The tension lifted slightly, and a ripple of laughter ran through the crowd. It broke the ice, just enough to let their fear seep away, if only for a moment. Alara stepped forward, her hands extended toward the sky. Listen to the earth with me, she said, her voice a melodic whisper that settled over the crowd. A hush fell, curiosity replacing caution as she began to speak to the land, her eyes closed as if in prayer. Jake watched, heart pounding, as Alara invoked the connection he'd been trying to explain. A soft wind stirred, rustling the leaves around them, and the townsfolk began to respond. Eyes widened with wonder, then it happened. A soft glow pulsed from the ground beneath Alara's feet, roots twisting and curling as if they were awakening from a long slumber. Gasps erupted from the crowd as colorful wildflowers broke through the tattered earth, forced toward the surface by an unseen force. Life where there had only been lifelessness, a promise blooming before their eyes, but just as hope began to flourish, the wind picked up, wild and unwelcoming. The storm clouds rumbled with frustration. Within moments, a bolt of lightning split the sky, illuminating the scene like a flash of truth. Panic erupted in the crowd, some stepped back, eyes darting, faces pleading for escape. Stay. Trust her. Jake shouted, desperation tinging his voice. He stepped toward Alara and felt the energy shift, a connection between them that grounded him, a bond propelled by raw spirit. Then, as if sensing the storm within the crowd, Alara raised her hands higher, her voice rising in strength. Let me show you what can be. Trust in the magic of the earth. The ground quaked softly, and another bolt lit the sky, a stark reminder of their doubts. Dark shadows lingered, yet Jake felt Alara's determination pressing against the fear. The clash between nature's fury and the fragile budding of life mirrored the struggle in their hearts. Jake's resolution faltered as doubts once again crept in. What if this was too much for her? What if their faith brought about their downfall? Just as he feared he would reach for the retreat of safety, Alara turned to him, her eyes fierce and confident, almost as if she could read his thoughts. Jake! She called, flipping the panic to a moment of clarity. This is our chance. We cannot let fear decide for us. Around them, hearts pounded. The moment hung thick with tension, and they stood at the precipice of faith, all eyes trained on what would come next. Would they hold together, or would their hope splinter like the storm breaking overhead? And just then, a child in the crowd stepped forward, looking to Alara with wide, hopeful eyes. I believe in you. That spark of innocence ignited the crowd. What would happen next? Would fear be replaced by hope? Or was the storm merely the beginning of a much larger battle to heal their home? As the child's voice echoed through the gathering, a ripple of energy surged through the crowd. It was as if the simple declaration had infused them with a new strength. Jake watched as parents hurriedly squeezed their children's hands, urging them forward, drawn by that single spark of faith. Pockets of encouragement blossomed within the multitude, one voice lifting another, until a chorus of whispered affirmations filled the air. I believe in you too, called an older woman, her voice trembling but determined. I trust you, Alara, shouted a young man, stepping bravely forward, emboldened by the warmth of community spilling over. Through the chaotic winds and the pressing darkness, Alara remained still, arms extended like branches reaching for the sun. The glow from the earth grew brighter, more vibrant, fueled now by the burgeoning belief of the crowd. Jake felt the weight of his anxiety begin to lift, just as Alara pulled more energy from the soil beneath her feet, urging it upward. Suddenly, a gust of wind swirled around them, carrying the scent of damp earth and something sweet. The flowers erupted into a spectrum of colors, their petals opening wide in fervent defiance of the storm. The sight was breathtaking, even the most cynical townsfolk gasped. Jake could see it in their eyes, the shift from fear to awe, a transformation that was palpable, but just as hope began to blossom fully, another rumble shook the heavens. The storm was restless. Lightning flashed again, almost as if nature was challenging Alara's spirit. A strong gust roared through, causing some to waver. Yet, with her voice lifted and unwavering, Alara called out to them. Feel this moment, my friends. Together we are stronger than any storm. Jake felt it, he truly felt it. The connection they shared with one another, with the land, spun into something bigger than mere words. He could see it in the faces before him, doubt melting into belief. Then, just as the chaos began to swirl again, Elara shouted over the wind, "I need your voices. Sing with me. Let the earth hear our courage." Suddenly, a harmony broke out, tentative at first, then gathering strength. Jake joined in, his vibrato steadying the notes. One by one, the townsfolk fell in line, their voices intertwining, a symphony rising higher as it pushed against the fury overhead. Each pitch spiraled upward, roaring against the roaring storm, proclaiming their unity, their hopes mingling with the very heartbeat of the earth. Jake lost himself in the moment, drawing strength from Elara, from the town. Each note felt as though it shaped the air above him, battling the storm head-on, dissolving fear like ice in sunlight. Then, abruptly, the lightning flashed again and, for a second, nothing else existed. A single beam struck the earth close by, drawing gasps from the crowd. Jake's heart raced, a cold sweat creeping down his back. But as he glanced at Elara, he saw her face bathed in strength, grounding him once more. Just then, the first drops of rain fell from the sky, not harsh or punishing, but gentle, like blessings landing softly, whispering promises of life. The crowd shivered, some shying away from the unexpected touch, but Elara continued to call them forth, inviting them to embrace what was unfolding. As more rain mixed with their cheers, the flowerbed in front of Elara glowed fiercely, vibrant life pulling forth, nourished by both water and spirit. But even as joy started to dance between them, a dark shadow loomed within Jake. What would happen if they failed? The storm was still very much alive and unyielding, echoing a truth he couldn't shake. Hope was powerful, but it was not unbreakable. And then the ground trembled again, harder this time. Elara's voice wavered, as the storm's rage seemed to shift gears, threatening to drown them in despair. Would they conquer this trial together, or would the storm rip them apart? The fate of their town hung in the balance, a tenuous thread stretched between dreams and nightmares, fragile as the flowers embraced by Elara's calling. Jake clenched his fists, staring into the chaos. What if this was only the beginning? What awaited them on the other side of the storm? As the storm raged on, Elara remained the anchor, the eye in a swirling tempest. The raindrops began to thicken, no longer gentle, now soaking, drumming down in a steady rhythm. Each drop seemed a challenge, a cry from the heavens, but Elara stood firm. She lifted her voice higher, her song wrapping around them like a warm embrace. Jake could see the people struggling, faces etched with a mixture of determination and fear. The echoes of their harmony wavered, but Jake pressed on. He could feel the bond between them, a tether woven through music and conviction. This wasn't just the storm, this was a reckoning. Memory flashed in Jake's mind, a quiet afternoon on his family farm. He had stood amongst the grain, the sun on his back, feeling almost invincible. But grief weighed heavy now. He thought of his father, of loss, of how life seemed to fracture under pressure. Yet here, in this chaos, he found something surprising, a call to embrace fragility. The storm could destroy, yes, but it could also renew. In the crowd, he saw Mrs. Henderson, the elderly woman who had brought him soup after his father's passing. Her hands shook, spattered with rain, her face a mixture of fear and faith. "Stay with us, Elara," she cried, her voice trembling but steadfast. "Let them hear us." Fueled by her spirit, Jake turned and met the gaze of a little girl who smiled despite the rain, her small, innocent laughter breaking against the storm's roar. For a moment, everything else melted away. He could feel the strength coursing through them. Their collective belief watered the seedlings of hope sprouting amidst the wreckage. Elara glanced at him, just a flicker of those bright eyes, but it was enough. He stepped closer, gripping his hands tightly around the shoulders of the townspeople beside him. "Let us make them listen," he encouraged. Another strike of lightning illuminated the sky, and the earth shook harder beneath them. Fear licked at Jake's heart as he watched the villagers struggle to maintain their footing. But an unyielding flame ignited within him. He could not let despair corrupt this moment. "Raise your voices," he called, fighting against the chaos. "Together. Don't look at the storm, look at each other. The people gathered their strength, reclaiming their notes, every voice lifting, growing bolder, and more powerful. The harmony crescendoed sons and daughters, fathers and mothers, all woven together by this shared belief in Elara and each other. The very fabric of their hopes intertwined and anchored them against the tempest. As the chorus swelled, the flowers at the center of Elara glimmered brighter, each petal reflecting pure, vibrant light. The rain connected with their voices, merging into something extraordinary, a palpable force swirling like a protective shield around Elara. Energy ebbed and flowed, and with every note, the storm hesitated, almost confused. Could this be enough? Jake fought back the doubt tightening in his chest. Then, the ground trembled with a fierceness that stole the breath from their lungs. But this time, something shifted. Elara's song did not waver, and neither did the town. In fact, the storm seemed to retreat, pulling back, responding to their unified strength. Light flickered across the darkened sky. Was it hope or was it fear? As the rain intensified, something unexpected happened. A golden light broke through the clouds. It was as if the heavens were split open, showering warmth upon them, mingling with the rain until it felt almost sacred, and just like that, as they held on tighter and sang louder, Jake discovered an underlying truth within the chaos. The storm might rage, but so too could they rise up to meet it. Would this newfound courage last? Or would the tempest come ripping through their unity once more? With wild hope fluttering in his chest, Jake prepared for the next round. The storm still thundering, the battle far from over. As the last note rang out, reverberating against the darkened clouds, something within the crowd shifted. The golden light expanded, washing over them, as if the essence of their collective spirit had taken form. Elara's face shone, illuminated by their defiance against the storm. A deep sense of unity formed a barrier of hope that swallowed the weight of fear like a child hides under a blanket during a thunderstorm. Keep singing. Elara urged, her voice filled with a newfound strength. The townspeople rallied, their voices a harmonious wave attempting to push back the shadows clawing at the edges of their confidence. Jake felt the pulse of life around him, a living heartbeat full of vigor and purpose. With each vibration of sound, the rain began to change. What once fell like leaden weights now felt like soft petals, dancing to their melody. The heavy drops that threatened to drown them lifted into a fine mist, swirling around as if it, too, wanted to join in their song. The storm that had once seemed imposing now felt like a mere obstacle, an enigma that couldn't silence their hearts. But then came a rumble, deep and resonant, echoing like a warning bell. A massive bolt of lightning split the sky, landing near the edge of town with a deafening crack. Gasps of shock washed through the crowd, a shiver of fear mingling with their song. Jake turned to Elara, who tightened her grip on her flowers, her determination unwavering. They want to scare us. She yelled over the rising din. But we are stronger than they think. We are not alone. Her fervor struck a chord in Jake. It sparked something within him that was both terrifying and exhilarating. Had they truly found the magic to stave off disaster? As his heart raced, Jake scanned the faces in the crowd once more. Their expressions were etched with adrenaline and resolve, and in that moment, he felt a blend of fear and fighting spirit pulsing through him. The rain lessened, but the skies still darkened. Jake's eyes were drawn to the swirling clouds. Shadows formed and merged, twisting like angry spirits intent on chaos. But now, with unity pulsating through the crowd, hope blossomed in Jake's chest. He could see something shining from the depths of their resistance, a spark that could ignite the world. Suddenly, the earth shook violently, and panic rippled through the village. Bolts of light streaked across the sky, crackling like the tension in the air. The storm raged, but it didn't matter. Their song, once tentative, now grew into a full-bodied roar, mingled with cries of strength and resilience. But then Elara paused, her voice stilling. Her eyes widened as she gazed upwards. It's changing. She shouted, a mix of trepidation and wonder flooding her tone. Something is coming, something powerful. The villagers murmured among themselves, uncertainty creeping in. Jake felt the trembling earth beneath his feet, the both familiar and foreign sensation of power gathering. Was it the storm morphing, or were they channeling something greater? In that pulse of silence that followed, Jake felt a beckoning. It was undeniable, as if the very air around him buzzed with an unspoken promise. The tension thickened, anticipation hanging like mist. Was this their moment to reveal the truth, to uncover a secret long buried under the weight of fear? With the storm still raging about them, Jake glanced at the townspeople, at Alara, who slowly raised her arms. "Let us show them who we are." The air crackled with possibility. As they surged together, they faced the unknown head-on, ready to confront whatever was coming. What lay ahead could shift the course of their lives forever, but would they embrace it, or would they shrink back in fear? And in that charged moment, something shifted in the air, an unspeakable power ready to be discovered, a moment that could either shatter them or transform them all. The atmosphere twisted thick with energy, and a swirling fog coiled at their feet, almost alive. Jake felt it pull at him as if calling his name. He glanced around, everyone was caught in the same trance, entranced by the raw might brewing above them. It was more than just the storm, it felt like a merging of their fates, the awakening of a deep, ancient magic that had always lingered just out of reach. Alara's voice cut through the chaos, strong as the lightning that cracked above. "We have power," she declared, her arms wide open to embrace the force swirling around them. "Power to change everything." The crowd echoed her sentiment, a flood of voices rising like an unstoppable wave, each verse spilling over the last, harmonizing in an anthem of hope. It was like a ritual, one that had been forgotten, but now, it seemed to bubble forth from their very souls. But something shifted in Jake. He could feel it, a low rumble beneath his skin, urging him to move, to act. What if this wasn't just about their town? What if it was about something bigger? What if he was part of something grander than himself or anyone here could ever imagine? "Will you walk with me into the unknown?" Alara shouted, looking directly at him, her eyes sparkling with an intensity that made his heart jump. "Will you step into the storm beside me?" Jake's breath hitched. The power of her words coursed through him like fire. Could he do it? Could he follow this call? He nodded. It felt right, as if the storm had rehearsed this moment long before they ever stood here. The townsfolk looked at him, measuring his response, as if he had suddenly transformed into a beacon of light they could follow. As if sensing his resolve, Alara smiled brightly, fiercely, and it lit up the darkened sky. "Then let us show them." She turned, lifting her arms toward the gathering clouds, her entire being ignited by the collective force of the villagers. The storm hesitated for just a heartbeat, an infinitesimal pause that felt like the world drawing in a breath. Then, with a violent eruption, the clouds descended and twisted, revealing what lay behind them. A blinding light burst forth, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. Jake staggered back, and the crowd gasped in confusion and awe. What was happening? From that luminous center, shadows began to spill out, forming shapes that seemed both alien and familiar. As the silhouettes danced in the light, Alara stepped forward again, her resolve unwavering. "Do not fear the light. Embrace it. It comes from us." Then the light refracted through the silhouettes, creating a spectral display that pulsed with the rhythm of their unified song. Each note seemed to summon forth not just the energy of the storm but something deeper, something that had been waiting for ages, buried beneath the earth and their collective memories. All at once, an overwhelming wave of emotion crashed into Jake, the rush of memories, dreams, fears, and hopes blending into a single torrent. He could feel the weight of every heart in the village beating with his, like a drum calling each person to the forefront of their destiny, but just as quickly, the shadowy forms shifted and twisted, lashing out from the light. A deep voice resonated among them, a timeless echo that demanded respect and attention. "You dare challenge the storm? Who are you to think you can command its power?" The villagers were mesmerized, caught somewhere between awe and terror. Was this the force they had awakened? The challenge of their unity had summoned something much more significant than a storm. Jake's mind raced. They'd come this far, and now they must stand their ground. "We are the light. We are together." He called out, stealing a glance at Alara, her expression daring him to continue. What if that power could shatter the darkness that held them captive? Was it too late, or could they harness what they had ignited? As the voice echoed, demanding an answer, Jake felt the ground beneath him tremble once more. But what if the storm is your only hope? He squared his shoulders, ready to respond. Little did he know, a truth was about to unfold, one that would change everything for them all. But would they be able to face it? And what if the revelation was more unnerving than the storm itself? A hush fell over the crowd, but Jake felt the intensity in the air. The shadows flickered, shifting as if considering their next move, the deep voice reverberating with ancient wisdom and challenge. He took a step forward, ready to face whatever came next. Your hope is a fragile thing, the voice warned. What you call light could just as easily be your doom. Ilara stood beside him, resolute. Hope is what brought us here. We are not just survivors, we are warriors of our destiny. We will face whatever comes. He marveled at her courage, her faith inspiring him to dig deeper within himself. A spark ignited, he felt the energy pulsing in sync with the rhythm of their beating hearts. The ground shuddered violently underfoot, trees bending as a gust of wind exploded around them. In the chaos, Jake grasped Ilara's hand, grounding in her presence. They would face this together, no matter the outcome. An electric pulse shot through the air as the shapes shadowed behind the light shifted once more, revealing not just spirits but the faces of their ancestors, men and women who had faced trials far greater than theirs. Each face carried stories of resilience, strength, and love, almost begging to be seen and recognized. Remember us, the deep voice urged, softer now, almost pleading. Your trials made us who we are today, Jake replied, feeling the weight of every word. We honor our past by standing up, not by hiding. We will not be afraid. The energy swelled, and he thought he saw flickers of approval in the faces of their ancestors. Jake's heart raced. Could they really harness this power? Could they meld their light with the shadows, turning fear into strength? The storm raged on, a turbulent symphony of wind and lightning, but amid the chaos, a glowing warmth began to radiate from the center where the voices mingled. Hope sparked, igniting the air with electric anticipation. Then, Ilara gasped. Jake, look! She pointed towards the shimmering light. From the depths of the illumination, a single figure emerged, a woman cloaked in ethereal mist, her presence both comforting and fierce. Closer now, the light wrapped around her like a protective cocoon, illuminating her features, eyes bright like stars, hair flowing like liquid silver. The Priestess. A voice broke through the murmur of the crowd. It's her. Behold. She echoed, her voice resonating with power. You, brave souls, have awakened the magic of the ancients. The crowd stood frozen, awe filling their eyes. Jake felt heat curl around him. What does that mean for us? He called out, trying to rise above the wind's howl. The Priestess turned her gaze, locking eyes with Jake. To wield such power, you must know its price. This storm can forge your future or it can consume you. Fear gripped his heart, and for a moment, doubt snaked into his mind. But as he looked at Ilara, her determination pierced through the haze of uncertainty. She nodded, and he knew what he had to do. What do we need to do? Jake asked, a sense of urgency fueling his words. The storm is a reflection of your hearts, the Priestess instructed. If you wish to command its power, you must embrace the darkness within you. Your fears, your doubts, accept them as part of who you are. The crowd shivered as her words hung in the air. Fear mixed with hope, a concoction just waiting to explode. Could it really be that simple? To confront what scared them the most. A wave of murmurs swept through the villagers, each grappling with their own shadows. A chance to change everything, to reclaim their lives. But acceptance required vulnerability, and that terrified Jake. This journey was not just about confronting the storm outside, it was about the storms within. What if we fail? Someone whispered in the crowd. The Priestess smiled. Dare to embrace yourself, and you will not fail. Together, you are more powerful than you know. Jake's heart surged with conviction. Together. He shouted, gripping Alara's hand tighter. The villagers echoed him, faces lighting up with determination, hearts aligning. Together. As the chant rose and fell, pulsing through the air, Jake felt the storm respond. A bond forged between earth and sky, light and dark. But deep within, a nagging fear lingered. If they were to confront their dark truths, what would they find lurking within themselves? And could they still emerge whole? As the winds began to spiral, Jake knew their journey was just beginning. But the real test loomed ahead, and he couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest battles lay within. The winds howled around them, twisting like unleashed spirits as the priestess's voice hung heavy in the air. Every flicker of lightning illuminated the faces of the villagers, a mix of hope and fear etched across their features. Yet Jake could see a spark ignite in their eyes, an understanding that they were on the edge of something profound. Embrace the darkness, the priestess's words echoed in his mind, repeating like a rhythm, a mantra. What did that mean? For him, darkness was fear, regret, the ghosts of decisions he had made. The weight of past failures felt like chains, pulling him back as he stared into the storm. Alara squeezed his hand tighter, her presence anchoring him. We can do this, she whispered, her breath warm against the cold gusts. If we hold on, we will break through. Together. Together, he echoed, conviction flowing through him. At that moment, the air shimmered, rippling like the surface of a lake. The priestess raised her hands, her voice booming, let your collective fear become your strength. Share your burdens, your uncertainties, and you shall transform. The villagers stared at one another, hesitant whispers swelling like a tide. What if they revealed their deepest insecurities? What if they were judged? A muffled voice broke the silence. I lost my son to the storm, I couldn't save him. Tears streamed down a woman's face, her anguish reverberating through the crowd like a sonorous bell. Jake felt a swell of compassion within him, pulling at the threads of doubt surrounding his heart. We've all suffered. We've all faced loss. He called out, raising his voice over the wind. But if we hide those feelings, we will never be whole. Let us stand together, mourning, loving, strong. A ripple of agreement spread through the villagers, the atmosphere shifting. Voices began to rise, each one sharing stories of despair and hurt, moments that shaped them, stories of loss, feelings of inadequacy, and haunted memories. I was afraid I wasn't enough, said a farmer, stepping forward. Every day, I fear the land will turn on me. They call me weak, another added. I've always been branded the failure of my family. With each confession, the storm around them seemed to react, the wind howling louder as if clawing at the skies. But amid the chaos, a warmth began to radiate from the collective. Jake could feel the energies shifting, weaving together the stories of their lives. The priestess watched, her expression shifting from stern resolve to gentle encouragement. You are uniting. Your fears are interwoven with your joys, and only by accepting all parts of yourselves can you summon the true power of the storm. With a newfound urgency, Jake stepped forward. We are more than our dark moments. Don't let fear the shadows blind us to our strength. Let us harness this storm together. He felt Alara's unwavering spirit beside him, her courage amplifying his voice. Together. Came the resounding cheer from the crowd, strong and unwavering. Hope flickered and sparked like embers igniting in strong winds. The storm around them began to echo their voices, swirling and twisting, bending toward them as if entwining their hopes with the fury of nature. Jake realized that embracing their collective darkness was transforming it, shifting it from a burden to a source of strength. But with that came another wave of uncertainty. They were opening doors that may never close again. What if confronting their deepest fears opened the floodgates to more shadows? As the storm intensified, Jake caught the gaze of the priestess. There was a flicker in her eyes as the winds picked up speed, a challenge lingering unspoken. Are you ready to wield the magic? Will you embrace the shadows ahead? The storm was building, and the biggest confrontation was yet to come. A looming question whispered in the breeze: would they unite their light and dark to become something beyond themselves, or would it tear them apart? In that instance, a surge of adrenaline coursed through Jake's veins. They had come too far to turn back now, but were they truly ready for what lay ahead? The storm raged on, wild and unforgiving, twisting and writhing as fear battled with hope. Jake stood firmly with Alara at his side, feeling the weight of the village's dreams hanging in the air like heavy rain clouds. Their voices merged, breaking through the tumult, a powerful chorus infused with determination. Yet, a nagging doubt crept in. Could they truly harness this storm, this raging force of nature? Together, Jake roared, gritting his teeth against the wind that whipped around them. We face it together. The villagers, emboldened by his fervor, echoed back, together. Each shout ripped through the turmoil and added to the strength spiraling from the earth to the darkened sky above. The priestess watched with earnest eyes. You are drawing upon the ancient magic hidden in your very souls. Acknowledge your shadows. Face them. Jake took a bold step forward, breathing deeply. I stand here, a fool for believing in a magic I cannot see, but the truth is, he paused, eyes scanning the anxious faces before him. I have been afraid to fail, to lose, to be alone. But today, we will cast out that fear. Alara nodded, her gaze intense, urging him on. Embrace it. We are the culmination of our stories. Our fears make the light burn bright. With a sudden flutter in the crowd, an elderly man spoke, trembling but resolute. My wife left because I could not protect my family. His voice cracked but rang with a raw honesty that hushed the wind momentarily. Jake felt a stirring in his heart, an echo of shared pain. We all carry burdens. I lost my father, and deep down, I thought maybe I wasn't enough to live up to his legacy. Springing from the depths of vulnerability, more voices began to rise. I feared judgment. I was afraid my dreams were foolish. Another shouted, an ember of courage lighting up his expression. Together, we are not just echoes of fear, Jake proclaimed, heart racing. We are a tapestry of resilience. Let these shadows fuel our fight against the storm. Let them remind us what we are fighting for. The storm above surged, crash-landing bolts of electricity across the sky, but instead of backing down, the villagers pressed on. Their words danced through the air, igniting courage in waves. The energy shifted from fear to determination, swirling around them like a tempest charged with newfound strength. Suddenly, a golden light pulsed above, weaving through the swirling winds, a manifestation of hope entwined with their confessions. Feel it. The priestess shouted, eyes gleaming. This is your power. Command it. In that surge of collective resolve, the storm seemed to respond, hesitating, as if testing the weight of their solidarity. The realization washed over Jake like a baptism, a connection forged between the village and the magic they had awakened. Could they transcend their limitations? The storm convulsed violently, but Jake's heart remained steady. Are you with me? He called, looking at the villagers. Are we ready to let go of fear? Yes. The response thundered, a rallying cry bursting forth from their souls, stronger than the storm. As Alara raised her arms skyward, the glowing figure of the priestess mirrored her, illuminating their connection. Let the fear transform. Let it ignite the power inside. Come forth and be that power. Bolt after bolt of lightning cracked overhead, illuminating shadows of the past, the memories that weighed them down, changing from chains to wings. In that heart-stopping moment, clarity washed over Jake. They could own their fears, reshape them, transform them into strength. Drawing upon the light surging through the air, he turned to the crowd, now shimmering with promise. Then let us do it. Let us channel that power, love who we are, and change the world around us. With one final surge, the villagers raised their arms, echoing his call for unity, their voices lifting toward the sky. The ground trembled beneath them, a powerful vortex of energy spiraling outward, pulling together the threads of their shared experience. then something incredible happened. As they harnessed their collective fears and joys, the storm began to morph. The clouds shifted, the wind softened, and instead of destruction, a deluge of rain fell, a warm, nurturing rain, drenching them in renewal. Joy erupted from the villagers as the air around them filled with laughter and tears of relief. Jake and Alara embraced, their hearts pounding, the storm that had once threatened them now washing away the past like cleansing fire. The weight on their shoulders lifted, leaving behind a connection forged in resilience, love, and unity. The priestess smiled, her presence serene, reflecting the light they had awakened together. "You've done it. You faced the storm and transformed it. This is the beginning of your true power." With hearts swelling, laughter echoed in the air, mingling with the nourishment of rain, a promise of abundant life returning to the land, and at that moment, Jake realized they were no longer just villagers struggling to survive, they were a community transformed, united in belief. They had seen the depths of their fears and emerged stronger, ready to embrace whatever the future held. As the storm passed, the sun broke through the clouds, radiating warmth over the wet land now shimmering like a new canvas ready to embrace life. They had reclaimed their spirit, and the fields whispered of hope. Together. Jake shouted once more, his voice ringing with triumphant joy, and the village echoed back, together. This was the dawn of a new beginning. Now it's time for you to take part in this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others uncover their potential. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these amazing actions.